It's all coming together in the middle of the park now, and the key to that has been the rebirth of this kid.
Barcelona, have to say, look very good. In particular, Gavi, who scored a goal, first one in over a year, of course he's been injured, and also created a goal as well, and he brought a whole new dimension to the team. We've known that Gavi's always been a great player, and he's a tenacious little player as well. But if the game is remembered for anything, it was his performance and the fact that he's back to 100% fitness as well.
He's back. With Gavi now, though, we've got big talking points. What's happened to him? Why did he almost leave? How has he become an important player for Barcelona's team under Hansi Flick this season? You're probably familiar with the drill by now. There's a subscribe button to Football Historia down below, and if you haven't clicked it yet, then now is the chance to. To say Gavi is a talented player would be kind of an understatement by now, and considering that he's still only 20 years old, that's incredible. This season, Gavi has been on an upward curve since his return back to the first team, and we'll talk about how the injury that kept him out long-term cast doubt on whether he'd be able to return to the same levels he showed before, but it's safe to say he more than has. Only a few minutes back into the team and he's already getting stuck in. Classic Gavi. So what makes this kid so good then? Well, to start with, it's the fact that he's a crossbreed of talent Barcelona has never had. Think about it. Think about the legendary midfielders Barcelona has witnessed over the years. The likes of Andres Iniesta, Gavi, Sergio Busquets and Cesc Fabregas. Might seem like a long shot immediately comparing Gavi in any way to these guys, but there's a degree of truth in this. All the players I mentioned earlier, what's the one thing they have in common? Technical ability. The ability to pick a pass, spot a run, dribble past players effortlessly, quick turns, all that stuff. But there's something they've never had, or at least never shown to a full degree, that Gavi has in excess quantities. Tenacity. And this, guys, is the obvious quality that makes Gavi a standout. It's that doggedness, how he puts his body on the line for every tackle, or going to any lengths just to win the ball back. Gavi is a warrior, a crossbreed of the technical ability you expect from a midfielder playing for Barcelona, but also having the sheer doggedness and engine room to run and tackle. He's like a mix of Andre Iniesta and N'Golo Kante, with Felipe Melo's aggressiveness, all in one body. So now we know what makes him special. The next question is, what makes him special to this Barcelona setup, this team under Hansi Flick? To answer this, we've got to go back a bit.
Monumental Gavi recordando a Iniesta con ese giro de 180 grados y con esta definición.
When Gavi first broke into the Barcelona setup, the qualities we listed above made him an indispensable option to have in midfield.
Gracias. Bueno, Gavi es un chico que nos emociona a todos, ¿no? Cuando lo ves competir así, ¿no? Es que pone un alma y un corazón y un carácter que lo imprime y lo contagia al equipo, ¿no? Con 18 años. Tiene una capacidad de liderazgo innato, le sale de dentro, ¿no?
This was the general theme with him and Barca's former coach Xavi Hernandez. See guys, Gavi's rare qualities have made him an important part of the team, that even when the midfield options became too much, Xavi still found ways to include Gavi in the team. In Barcelona's 2022-23 La Liga title-winning campaign, Gavi again showed another quality at such a young age that's invaluable: versatility. As you see guys, in his debut campaign, he played primarily in the midfield role, acting as the most advanced of the three in the midfield, which was usually Sergio Busquets behind him with Frankie de Jong as his partner. But when Pedri returned, it became a question of Xavi trying to find a balance for the team, and the manager knew there and then that he left Gavi out of the squad, he'd lose that combination of aggressiveness and tenacity up front. So instead, he shifted Gavi to the left, and the result? He played his role in Barcelona winning La Liga, the 2022 Golden Boy winner too. Now, it wasn't just Barcelona recognizing Gavi's talent, the rest of the world was. His excellent form even translated to him getting called up to Spain's squad for the 2022 World Cup, which, again, he impressed in.
And Gavi arriving!
The key word to take out there is the responsibility Gavi had now taken up. After scoring this goal versus Costa Rica at the World Cup, Gavi had now become the youngest goalscorer in the competition since Pelé. He did this at 17. But my point here is that Gavi had now impressed under two of Barcelona's former greats, Xavi at the club level and now Luis Enrique for the national team. The sky was looking like the ceiling for Gavi, But in a cruel twist of fate, the injury that almost hampered his career happened.
It's up on the right. Gavi looking for a free kick.
Gavi tore his ACL, and it was probably at this point that a lot of people started to realise just how important he was to the team he was playing for. That's what Barcelona lost, and the results began to show on the pitch. The 2023-24 campaign was one to forget for Barcelona. They had to watch as Real Madrid won La Liga and the Champions League, and head coach Gavi was sacked. This brings us to the present day and back to the question of Gavi. Following the appointment of Hansi Flick, it was clear that once Gavi returned, he'd be playing under a new coach, and the big question surrounded him was whether or not he'd be able to return to the same level of intensity he'd shown before his ACL injury, and if he'd be able to find a new place in the new Barcelona setup with Flick in charge. He did return, made his season debut against Sevilla, and in the post-match conference, it was clear Hansi Flick had a special plan for this kid.
I think today Sevilla, I think this was his goal, to really be on the bench against Sevilla, and maybe if it's possible to play 5 minutes. It was his dream.
Take out the emotional impact of his return, and Hansi Flick was already hinting at what he expected from Gavi after his first game back. Gavi was only on the pitch for less than 10 minutes, and he was already trying to win tackles and getting play advanced for Barcelona. That brief cameo would have been enough to convince Hansi Flick of how he was going to use Gavi in his setup. The German manager has brought a slightly unconventional style to the Nou Camp now. High risk, high reward. It shows in the way Barcelona plays this season. We've already seen some crazy scorelines this campaign. 5-4 away at Benfica. 4-1 against Bayern Munich, 5-2 against Real Madrid, and 7-1 against Valencia. The point is, Hansi Flick is demanding an all-out energy system from his team. It's not the Barcelona the world became used to for years, the one that used to pass teams around. Flick's Barcelona team is constantly trying to find a way to advance play and attack, and a player like Gavi fits that description perfectly. Why? To be able to play the way they do, Flick knows they'll need to be able to win the ball high up the pitch when they lose it, and get on the opposition immediately after there's a turnover. For a player like Gavi, it's the perfect scenario. Again, we might not have seen it in full swing yet, and that's because he's still only recovering from his injury. But Gavi will become a very useful asset to Hansi Flick, specifically because of his technical ability on the ball and his tenacity off it. Hansi Flick knows this too, which is why he isn't rushing Gavi's game time, because for a player like Gavi, he'd rather use him when he's fully fit. Watched him in the game versus Athletic Bilbao in the Spanish Super Cup semi-final, and in a game with a ticket to the final on the line against a Bilbao team with all to play for, Gavi stole the show. A goal and an assist, man of the match, and a trademark move we might soon have to get accustomed to. That's 3 managers he's played under, and he's impressed. See guys, Hansi Flick has a master plan for Barcelona, particularly in midfield, that involves Gavi as a collective. Remember Xavi, Iniesta and Busquets? That holy trinity that dominated Spanish football for years. Flick is trying to create his high-intensity version of this. Pedri, Gavi and Marc Casado. On Gavi's part, however, his role is special. As the season progresses, you can expect him to get more minutes in the team, and that's where we'd be able to see the full effect of how Flick wants his team to play with the Spaniard in midfield. Another aspect of his game that goes under the radar is his positional sense during matches. Take the goal against Athletic Bilbao, for example. He recognized the space Lewandowski had vacated, got into the position for the cutback, and was rewarded with the goal. He displayed something similar against Real Betis with his goal. He knows when to arrive in the box and how to arrive. I mean, come to think of it, it's scary what Gavi could turn out to be for Barcelona. Imagine that. They'd have a player who can be everything for the club. A player who can attack, who can split lines with passes, who can track back to win balls, start attacks. It's the complete package in one player. That's scary, unless you're a Barcelona fan. Playing in the new system under Hansi Flick requires constant energy, being able to run and be tactically sound at the same time.
Nein, ich muss sagen, Rafinha is
a great example of how this team works. that I've found
immer gut drauf ist, der
is
im
always
Training alles gibt und der
the player that
auch da
leads by example,
wie im Spiel auch
gives his all in his
sehr
training
hohe
sessions,
Intensität auch
and
hat.
also today in a game of high intensity, he's an important player for us
weil er oftmals auch
with the ball,
das Pressing auslöst,
but also when we don't have it, like with his pressing,
Art und aber auch natürlich, das hat man heute
which he does very well.
Remember when Hansi Flick was praising Rafinha for these attributes? Well, it was at the time when Gavi was nearing his recovery from injury. Gavi is back now, and with each passing game, it's become more glaring that Hansi Flick might have every manager's dream in the coming month: a selection headache. No, I didn't make a mistake with the earlier statement. See guys, a selection headache for a manager in this context is having so many impressive options to choose from that knowing the players who don't make the starting 11 and remain on the bench can impact the game at any time. In Gavi's case, once he regains full fitness, you expect him to start. But the big question right now is where? It'll be very interesting to watch Barcelona as a team in the coming months, particularly when they have most of the injured options fully fit and available. We know now that with a player like Dani Olmo, Hansi Flick likes to have that advanced attacking option, almost as a number 10, just behind the front three to link up play. We also know that the base, as has been the case oftentimes this season, he likes having two players in there to control the game and maintain the balance, Pedri and Marc Casado. So where does Gavi come in? Well, that's the beauty of a player of his ability. He can play anywhere in this setup, whether it's as a 6, 8 or even as a 10 or out wide. Gavi is a player who has shown his willingness to learn and, as a result, can adapt to any position on the pitch. It's things like these that make him that important to the setup. Marc Casado is relatively new to the setup, considering that he only really got his big break into the team this season. So if we focus this on Pedri and Gavi, they could be the 2.0 of a duo the game fell in love with for years. I'd be Steve Nicol if I watched Gavi and Pedri week in and week out too. Honestly, it might be too early to say, but from what they've shown over the years, they're doing it right now. It's crazy to think that Gavi is only 20, and yet he's already matured into becoming one of the leaders in the Barcelona team at 20. Mentality. He carries the same mentality into training sessions and even matches. Recently, Gavi has been making the headlines for a touching moment that shows just how much he's matured as a player. As part of his recovery process, Hansi Flick wanted to bring Gavi on for the final few minutes after Barcelona were romping Valencia at home. And in the exchange above, it seemed like Gavi was refusing the substitution. And so after the game, it became a hot topic, until the situation became clear that Gavi had done something you only expect for a true leader. Gavi asked that Hansi Flick bring on Pablo Torre instead, because he understood that his teammate was fighting for game time, and playing in a match like this was only going to help increase his confidence levels. I mean, that's the hallmark of a leader right there, assessing situations even the coaches don't see sometimes. You'll notice that so far in the video, we've refrained from using stats. I could tell you now that his ground duels of 51 at a rate of 14.43 per 90 ranks him in the 92nd percentile in the league for that category, or that he has a passing completion accuracy of 94.5%, which is pretty decent. But with a player like him, the stats don't cut it. This isn't just because of the position he occupies, it's also because, in describing Gavi, you watch him play and he passes the eye test. That in itself is enough. From all that's been said now, it's clear that Gavi has a big future ahead of him. He's still only 20. For context, he could quite easily have 4 more World Cup campaigns in addition to the one he's already got with Spain. That's 12 more seasons of football at club level, at 36. There are certain players that embody what this new Barcelona team under Hansi Flick is. Players who combine the technical aspect of the game with the physical aspect too. Full of running, energy, and still being able to play. Gavi is one of them. At the start of the 2023-24 season, there were rumours of Gavi potentially leaving the club. This was during the time where Chelsea spent big on young talent, and Gavi was one of the star names being mentioned around this time, but it quickly got cancelled. A contract to 2030, a release clause of €1 billion. He's back now, and if he keeps up his form, it wouldn't be that much of a surprise if he gets another contract extension in the near future. Either that, or he could shock the world and leave for free. Yeah, you don't really see that happening. But on the topic of free transfers, one that's almost certain to happen is this guy leaving one of the most impressive teams in European football this season for a whopping sum of €0. Trent Alexander-Arnold's move to Real Madrid is on the verge of happening, but when it gets down to it, there are reasons to believe that Trent might actually not be the best fit for Los Blancos, and you can find out why in the next video.